Hey everybody! For those of you who are new here, welcome, and for those of you who have been here before, welcome back. My name is Michelle the Bookworm, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a critique of the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. This was written around 1844. I started this audiobook back in April, but I finally finished it June 15th. It is for free on, I've listened to it on an audiobook website called LibriVox.com, LibriVox.org, I believe, actually. It's completely free to use. This isn't sponsored in any way, but I have gone through a lot of my classic literature TBR just by listening to this app, and honestly, I think that the voice acting for this novel was extremely wonderful, so you should totally check it out. So first, I just want to give a little summary about the Count of Monte Cristo. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie, but the movie and the book do differ quite a bit. The Count of Monte Cristo is about this young sailor named Edmound Dante. Edmound Dante returns from a long voyage when he was out at sea and the captain died, and Edmond ended up leading the crew and the cargo back safely, which ends up landing him a really big promotion. He ends up getting to be the sea captain, which is really great. He's actually pretty young, under the condition that he delivers a letter to the captain's companion. And in the midst of all this, he's also planning on marrying his lovely lady, Mercedes. Unfortunately, there are those who are jealous of Edmund's financial and romantic success. Two men named Danglars, who's the ship accountant, who was, I guess, supposed to get the ship, and Fernand Mondego, who is a local fisherman who's absolutely in love with Mercedes. He's also her cousin, and I guess, like, in her family, it's tradition to marry your cousin, and so he also has, like, this claim on her, which I thought it was, like, really weird. So they both feel like they have claims on what Edmund has, and so they decide to frame him for murder, or for, not for murder, but for being a Bonapartist supporter. So Edmond is taken away on his wedding day to be tried for treason. He doesn't know what he's being accused of. He has no idea, like, that he's done anything wrong. But the judge's district attorney, Monsieur de Villefort, ends up reading the incriminating message that Dante was supposed to deliver, and basically it ends up incriminating his father, Monsieur de Villefort's father. The letter was written by someone close to Napoleon and was addressed to his father. So in order to save his father's life and kind of his own family's reputation, all the evidence is kind of pointing towards Edmond anyways, so he locks up Edmond Dante in order to protect his father. It's at this point that Edmond spends the next 14 years in the Chateau d'If prison, not even knowing what his crime was. During his time, he ends up meeting a wealthy Italian prisoner who's a priest named Abbe Ferrara. The Abbe educates Edmond, teaches him like literature, teaches him how to read, teaches him a lot of different like ways to be sophisticated and stuff. And this is all while they're digging like an actual hole to try to get out and escape. Unfortunately, at the last minute, the Abbe does become sick and he ends up dying, but not before giving Edmond directions to his buried treasure, which he actually has on the island of Monte Cristo. You see where this is going. So in order to get out, he pretends to be the dead abbé. And at the time, what they do with the dead bodies in Le Chateau d'If is they just take them. There's not really a whole lot. There's no room on the island to bury them. So they take them, put them in body bags, row them out to sea, and dump them. So Edmond basically just lays still while they dump him off in sea, and he finds his way to, he gets saved by another boat, finds his way to the island of Monte Cristo, and finds the buried treasure. Using these treasures that he finds on the island of Monte Cristo, the sailor Edmound Dante reinvents himself as the noble Count of Monte Cristo. Eventually, the Count finds himself in Paris, where Danglars, Ferdinand, and de Villefort have all conveniently settled. Each of them are very wealthy and successful. They've married and are with children, and Ferdinand, of course, has married Mercedes. The Count of Monte Cristo is an instant intrigue because he comes in and he has an unlimited bank account with Paris. So basically his money is like unlimited. Nobody knows how much money he has. And to him, money is just trivial. The Count ends up being an instant hit with the social climbing families, and he's mysterious, he's sophisticated, he's wise, he's elegant, and everyone wants to be his friend. Everyone at least wants to know him. Everyone at least wants to know where he's been, because nobody that they've ever known has been able to just come out of the blue like this and be such a pronounced person. So the Count's intricate revenge plot gains momentum in Paris and around Paris, where he gradually ends up ruining the lives of each one of his enemies that ended up imprisoning him. I don't want to say exactly how, because I do want you to read the story, and I do want you to give it a shot. So I don't want to give too much away, but they definitely get their comeuppance. So one thing that I thought was really interesting about this literary style that Alexandre Dumas had is that there's no exact climax to the Count of Monte Cristo. So the Count is constantly working angles, he's planting seeds of doubt, he's just constantly working on his little plots that is not even explained until the very end. Like literally the last 2 or 3 chapters, everything's explained. I was even confused throughout this entire thing, like about what his actual plans were. So it does get explained, but it's that mystery that keeps you holding on. There are many literary themes in this book, and there are a few that I thought were most important. The first one is revenge. This is the driving force of this novel. It's basically the Count of Monte Cristo's life was ruined by these men, and he wants to ruin their lives as well. Everything is very well thought out. Everything was extremely intricate. I mean, what else is he supposed to do? Spending 13 years in prison? Yeah, spending all that time in prison, what else is he supposed to do except hatch a revenge plan, right? And so all he just needed was patience, which jail had taught him a lot of. And basically, the reader knows that the Count is going to get his revenge, and we're just waiting. We're just like, every time the Count does something, we're like, okay, what is his angle, because you don't, even the reader doesn't really get to know. The second literary theme that I'd like to talk about is transformation. Edmond Dante uses his newfound wealth to transform from Edmond Dante the sailor to the mysterious Count of Monte Cristo. He was once a pure-hearted, naive sailor who just wanted to live his life with the love of his heart, the love of his life, and he was so sweet. And then he spent time in prison where he was transformed into the hard-hearted mastermind who takes on multiple disguises. Spoiler alert, uh, Edmond Dante is the Count of Monte Cristo. He's also known as Sinbad the Sailor. He's also the chief clerk of Thomson and French, which is like where he gets all of his money. And he also is the French Abbe Busoni, Lord Wilmore, and Monsieur Zucconi. So this was something that was a bit hard to kind of like wrap my head around throughout the novel. And it was really hard to follow the fact that he was all these people. Like, I didn't even get that he was Monsieur Busoni or Monsieur Zucconi until the very end. Like, it was insane. I'm gonna have to like reread this now that I know this information. But he takes on all these disguises, and this is something, and so he uses all these different personas in order to further his plan for revenge. The third literary theme that I'd like to discuss is the idea of justice and judgment, and particularly who is in charge of dealing out justice. One of the main antagonists of this story is Monsieur de Villefort, whose duty it was to assist the district attorney to help uphold the law. However, in order to protect his own family and for his own personal gain, and it wasn't even for his father, he claims to say it was to protect his father, but really it's so that his family didn't go down in infamy for being Bonapartist sympathizers. So he destroyed incriminating evidence and sent an innocent man to jail for life. Um, Time and time again in this novel, we see people of power and considerable reputations partaking in appalling acts for the sake of their own reputations. And this kind of leads into my fourth literary theme, which is ambition. Most of the men and women that we see in this novel are extremely ambitious, and a good part of this novel is these men wondering how such a man, such as the Count, could come into so much money and was able to make a name for himself when they hadn't ever heard of him. A lot of these people use their connections in order to kind of move up in the world, but no one has heard of this guy, and no one knows who he is or where he got his money, and yeah, they just, no one knows where he came from. This novel involves people who are so driven by their goals that they will literally do anything to achieve them. And this doesn't just apply to the Danglars and Fernand. Yes, they did those things to Edmond in order to protect their reputations and for their own personal goals, but Edmond is just as set on achieving his goal of revenge that he completely lets it consume his life, even after leaving prison. So overall, The Count of Monte Cristo was a great book to listen to. I actually didn't understand that he was the Abbé until the very end of the book, but looking back, it kind of like seems obvious now. It was a complete roller coaster of emotions. And my final thought in the end was it worth it? I mean, the woman he once loved was ruined, and even though he got his revenge, he didn't end up with, spoiler alert, he didn't end up with Mercedes. His former love and son was forced into, like, dire circumstances. And honestly, I'm kind of upset that he didn't get with her. Like, he just went off sailing. And so what was the point of everything? Like, what was the point of all of this if it wasn't to get with Mercedes? Like, was it just to make sure that everybody in his life, like, just were ruined? Yeah, I'm not too sure. I was rooting for the Count the entire time, but there were times when, like this, where I guess I just don't understand his point of view. There were also times when honestly I thought the Count was a little pompous. I mean, maybe 13 years in prison will do that for you, but he's kind of a jerk, and his character is a little unlikable at times, yet everybody loves him. I guess it's probably because he actually knows a lot. He's a very well-learned man. Yeah, those are my overall thoughts. So, in conclusion, I gave the Count of Monte Cristo a 4 out of 5. You really grew to empathize with the Count, especially throughout the novel, and the reader was just waiting for him to get his revenge. I was completely intrigued by the Count's character. Like, he was perfect, but he was almost too perfect, like, to the point where he's a douche. And but like, and I'm wondering, like, how much of it was an act, like how much of it was him just pretending to be a nobleman because that's like how he was going to get his revenge, or was he really like an asshole? Yeah, this is a true story of revenge to the point where even the reader gets caught up in the chase. Like, they just want him to give everybody their comeuppance. And now the Count can go and reinvent his life as the sailor he was meant to be. And I suppose that my end of the video question is revenge worth it? I think that's the question that Edmound Dante posed towards the end, was it all worth it? Yeah, and I know it's a pretty deep question, but is getting revenge on someone who has wronged you worth it in the end? I know it's a pretty deep one, but if you have an answer, if you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, I will be seeing you guys very, very soon. The reading rush is coming up. I've already picked out my books for the challenges, and I will be posting that video very soon. In the meantime, read on, Bookworms, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!